I was a pretty and relatively smart 15-year-old girl, a good kid who did well in school despite a tough childhood. I was working at an amusement park full-time during the summer. The area I lived in could be sketchy, but having grown up with little to no adult supervision, I was used to trying to look out for myself. My father was out of town, and my mother was long out of the picture. My sister, who 3 years older, and myself were staying at our home alone. I finished work at 11 p.m. when the park closed, and walked home by myself as I usually did. It wasn't far, perhaps 10 minutes. I arrived home, my sister was still out somewhere, and I got ready for bed, putting my pajamas on and crawled into bed. I was starting to fall asleep but heard a small noise. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't seem like a usual house noise. My bedroom was on the second floor with stairs leading up. I didn't hear anything after that noise, so I didn't investigate, just chalked it up to nothing. I started to fall back asleep when I heard what sounded like hesitant footsteps on the stairs. I was instantly awake, but in my mind, it was my sister coming home and climbing the stairs where her bedroom was. Still in bed, I yelled out, "Wendy, Wendy, is that you?" I heard nothing back. I yelled again, "Wendy, is that you?" Nothing, but I hear more footsteps. I was petrified. I got out of bed, opened the bedroom door fully, and went out to the stairs, where I stood at the top. Below me, about halfway up the stairs, was a man I had never seen before. He looked to be early 20s, a little taller than me. Not a big guy, but solid, with blonde, curly hair. I asked him what he was doing. His reply was something along the lines of, "Where's Wendy? Where's Wendy?" From his manner and wild-eyed look, he seemed like he may have been doing drugs. He had followed me home from the park and was asking, "Where's Wendy?" in response to my calling out for her. For some reason, I got very angry, not just scared, and started screaming at him to get out of the house, that I was going to call my father and he needed to just get out. To my surprise, he did. He turned around, ran back down the stairs, and I didn't see where he went after that. But it turns out he must have left. I have no idea how he got in, but he was definitely there for me. That's why he followed me, not burglary or anything else. I think the only reason he left was because he had no idea where my sister Wendy was. Thought she was in the house, and it was an added complication to him getting caught. I was so shaken I stayed up the rest of the night. I didn't call the cops, didn't call a friend. The only person I told was my sister the next day. I don't know why. I just sat in a rocking chair, clutching my cat and rocking and crying, staying awake till the next morning. My sister never did come home that night. She stayed at a friend's and came home the next day. This happened 35 years ago. I never told anyone till now. I grew up in a small town, and my mother, sister, and I had moved to a larger city. I was home alone with my little sister, as my mom regularly worked night shifts, and I was a built-in babysitter. It was winter, just before Christmas, so by about 5 p.m., it was essentially dark outside. I would let my sister stay up late with me, and once she fell asleep cuddling with me on the couch, I would move her to her room. So we were laying on the couch when our dog started to lose her mind. She was incredibly sweet and would rarely ever bark, but at this point she's growling and the fur on her back is standing up. I picked my sister up and brought her to the washroom, which had no windows. I sat her in the tub and told her not to move, and I locked the door from the inside and shut it. I go back to the living room and grab my cell phone, ready to call for help if I needed to, when someone starts banging on my door like crazy. I looked through the peephole and I see a man standing outside, his face covered in blood. My dog is still losing her mind and she's trying to force herself between me and the door. I have no idea what to do, so I move away from the door and just stand there silently freaking out. The banging gets louder and then I start to hear voices and yelling, and this guy is pleading with me to open the door. I go and look in the peephole again, and there's another guy there beating on the blood-covered guy. I'm a small, defenseless 17-year-old girl, and there are two seemingly large men outside, one of which is beating another guy covered in blood as he's begging me to let him in my house. I finally call 911. I give them the necessary information while I genuinely don't think I made any sense during that phone call. I surprised they were able to narrow down what my address actually was. When the scene was finally taken care of, a police officer knocks on my door. At this point, my dog is still going ballistic. My toddler sister is locked in the bathroom, crying. I open the door for them, and part of the front is covered in blood from the hurt guy pounding on it. I managed to get my dog to relax enough to let the officers come inside, and they help me get my sister out of the bathroom, and they call my mom at work to tell her what's happened. I later found out the bloody guy was jumped a block or two away and was beaten pretty badly. He made a run for it and made it to my house, and the dude that was assaulting him caught up with him. I know the hurt guy wasn't trying to scare or hurt my sister or I. He was just trying to get help, and I felt terrible that I didn't let him in, despite it being the right thing to do. It was the middle of summer, and my parents had left for the weekend. It's about a 2-hour drive away, so it's no big deal for them to leave me alone for a few days. Things were all good. The first night I was alone, I stayed up till 2 in the morning, playing Xbox, so I woke up really late the next day. I checked my phone when I woke up and saw it was a little past 1. I'd made plans to play some street hockey with my friends at 3, so I threw myself out of bed and stumbled into the shower. I was in there for about 45 minutes on my phone scrolling Twitter, etc., when I heard door open. I immediately froze, since obviously I was supposed to be alone. I waited for about few minutes, ears trained in trying to hear anything else. I figured maybe my parents were home early, so I turned off the shower, wrapped my towel around myself, and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. So the stairs to the kitchen where the back door is are pretty tight and surrounded with walls, so I can't see into the kitchen when I walk down. Even though my house is old, and each step on the stairs makes a super loud creak, I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible walking down all 12 of the stairs. So when I get to the second to last stairs, right before I could see around the corner into the kitchen, I take a little breath to compose myself. In my mind, I knew I was being stupid. There obviously wasn't anything in the kitchen. There's no way I wouldn't have heard another noise, and there's no reason for them to still be in the kitchen, even if there were burglars or something in the house. I sort of chuckled to myself for being so stupid, and just normally walked the last 2 stairs and turned the corner into the kitchen. Standing about 2 feet away from me in the middle of my kitchen is a man staring straight at me. Perfectly still, just staring at me. The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or his smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his side. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I've ever seen. They were where one would normally hold their arms, but he had rotated them to the point where they were almost completely reversed, as well as lifting them up and a little behind himself. But in the moment, I just took a step towards him, sort of half slapping or pushing him towards the ground. I quickly up the stairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen, sprinted into my room and locked the door behind me. I quickly put a chair up against the doorknob and immediately called 911, and nearly in tears told the operator what happened. As I sat on the floor of my room, staring at the door, praying that a cop would be here soon, I noticed the light coming from the gap between my door had stopped. The man was standing outside of my door. After a few minutes, eventually the light returned to the gap and I heard the footsteps, slowly creaking the wooden floorboards as he walked down the hall. It was silent for minutes. As I just sat there, curled up, I heard banging on the front door and the sound of 2 officers entering my house, and I opened the bedroom door to the 2 of them standing there. Nowadays, my parents don't even leave me home alone anymore, and I check every lock on the house before going to bed. It was a Wednesday night in the summer. I was off work. My husband was out of town and our son was staying at his grandma's for the night. I was home alone with my dogs, a 80-pound Aussie mix and my German Shepherd. I always have issues sleeping when I'm home alone, so I tend to just watch TV in the living room until I can't keep my eyes open anymore. This particular night, I remembered that the trash pickup comes the next day. I decided to turn on Game of Thrones for a bit, then I would take the trash out. All of a sudden, I realize it's 1 a.m., and I still haven't taken the trash to the curb. My house has 2 solid iron gates, one in the front and one to the side door of my backyard. Lighting on our street or anywhere in our neighborhood isn't that great, but it's a quiet neighborhood with a lot of families, and you rarely hear about crime here. I looked out the window by habit before I took the trash out, and saw who I thought was my neighbor, smoking a cigarette outside of his gate across the street, looking directly at me. This is a normal occurrence. My neighbor across the street hides smoking cigarettes from his wife, so he typically does it late at night in front of his gate. I get off work late, So I usually see him and we wave, chat a little, then I go inside and he makes the joke, "You didn't see me smoking," if my wife asks. So unbothered by seeing the guy, I go outside, grab my trash cans, open my squeaky iron gate, and take them out to the curb. I did not have my glasses on at the time, so as usual I waved and said hello. However, the guy, who I thought was my neighbor, threw down the cigarette and quickly walked off down the street. It took a minute for me to register that he was not my neighbor. I was a little creeped out because he was clearly staring into my window from the opposite sidewalk. But also maybe it was a guy taking a night walk, and not unusual in our neighborhood, and just stopped for a cigarette. I thought I probably weirded him out as much as he weirded me out. So I went back inside and laid on the couch with my dogs to keep watching Game of Thrones. At some point I fell asleep, and I woke up hearing my gate squeak and my German Shepherd growling. He's extremely protective of our family at home, but he's also the kind of dog you can take anywhere, because he's so friendly in public. I quickly got up and pulled back my curtain. My gate was still shut and I didn't see anything. My dog, however, continued to growl at my front door. I looked out another window, which had a better view of my front yard and porch, but I didn't see anything. Eventually my dog settled back down with my other dog, but I was still uneasy. I ended up watching TV again because I couldn't go back to sleep. About an hour later, I definitely heard my gate squeak. We are the only ones with a heavy cast iron gate, and the noise it makes is so distinct. So I look out the curtain, while my dogs are continuing to softly growl. My gate is halfway open, but I don't see anyone. At this point, I'm panicking. In my panic, I couldn't find my phone. I grabbed my wooden baseball bat out of our room, crouched down, and started going through the couch cushions to get my phone. My dogs are oddly still quietly growling instead of barking, so I assumed no one was there. The minute I find my phone, my front door handle starts shaking. I run to the side door to let my German Shepherd out. I know he'll protect me, and he can jump the 6 feet back gate. The guy starts screaming and takes off down the street, while my dog chasing him. I then become terrified he'll hurt my dog. So I run out with my baseball bat, screaming my dog's name over and over. The next thing I know, my dog is prancing down the street back to me, look happy with blood all over his face. I call the police. They took another hour or so to show up, and didn't seem to take me too seriously. They said they'd call local hospitals, but I never heard back. I don't know what that guy wanted, but if he returns, my dog might finish the job he started. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine via big double glass doors in each of our rooms. Next to the balcony are 2 trees. One I often used to climb up and down from the balcony. This balcony faced out to the street. One night when I was about 13, my brother and my mother weren't home. I was reading in bed with a very dim reading light. I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside, but this didn't worry me. Now I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony. As mentioned previously, the doors faced out towards the street, where street lamp light was always visible through my curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. The shadow is tall, so it wasn't one of the neighbor kids that I'm friends with, and it surely wasn't my mother. The person moved slowly, creeping, trying to not be noticed. Whoever is out there wouldn't likely be able to see into my room, but I could see the shadow clearly, thanks to the streetlights. The person moved past my doors out of sight. I sat there unable to move or even think about what to do other than be absolutely still, until I heard another sound. The sound of someone trying to pry open my mom's doors to the balcony. I'm not sure if she had locked it or not. I moved quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. The person still trying to pry open the glass door. But it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in, surely. All I had to do was wait. Surely the person moved back along the balcony to my set of glass doors until I saw it stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze, but whoever out there couldn't see me. I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door's handle, and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity. But thankfully it was locked. I didn't have a mobile phone as my mom thought me too young to have one yet, and the landline was at the other end of the house. But I was too scared to take my eyes off this person, even to call for help. Then I heard him stop moving. He then said, "I could just break the glass, you know." Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on balcony moved out of sight, and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off it. I told my mom and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone. But a neighbor's reported a truck parked in the street that matched the description of a suspicious truck that had been reported recently near my school a block away. Since I walked that short distance daily, the police suspected that he had followed me or seen that I lived there and waited for me to be alone.